Hello, everyone. We'll wait a couple of minutes for people to join in for our second session of the day as part of the Productivity Web3 days. This one will be delivered by Clemens, our tech PMM and prompt engineer. Very fast. I did not know that. I did not know that you're a prompt engineer. It's apparently the latest, newest, and most demanded job in the world.
Yeah, I'll
So
just be an AI evangelist as well. Just general person. Anybody can be a prompt engineer. You just have to prompt a lot.
okay, let's get going. So welcome everyone. This is part of our Productivity Web3 Day webinar series, and this month and in October we are experiencing AI takeover. So all of the sessions are devoted to AI and kind of the cross between AI and Web3 when it's possible. And today, Clemens will be talking about the AI stuff that we do at Consensys and the opportunities for engaging further with AI, making it more useful to you in your day-to-day lives. Clemens has been doing those workshops for us internally for quite a while now. But today we asked him to open it to everyone also externally, and we're able to record it. So the recording will be also published online after the session. With that, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Marta. Thanks for having me. Yeah, just to emphasize again that this is an external public session. So I will not be talking about our Consensys GPT internal pieces. Feel free to ask on our Slack channel about that. How I've broken down today, we will be talking about generally, and that's Iron Joe over there. We will be going through kind of high level insights that I've seen. Like Marta said, that I've been doing this for 4 or 5 months now. So I usually provide updates for the latest month. I'll go over some important things that large companies are doing as well. Then I'll go specifically into how Web3 companies are engaging with AI modules, and then do some hands-on AI tools and examples of how you can use this on your day-to-day life. To kick this off, what is Consensys doing with AI? So we have created this applied AI Slack channel where it's not really a top-down head of AI type of approach. It's really a decentralized consensus mesh approach where we have just really passionate people sharing the latest news and updates about AI together. Back in March or April, the company created a legal and security overview, a policy. And I feel that if your company has not done this, it's definitely important to talk about confidential data being uploaded to these public LLMs. Another thing that we had was this hackathon. So our Cypherpunk hackathon back in May had a particular category around AI, and we allowed people to get access to the Azure OpenAI Playground, as well as ChatGPT and GitHub Copilot for those specific use cases. Overall, we still do monthly sessions. As Marta mentioned, we're doing this AI sprint takeover for Productivity Web3 days, and we tell people to do some really fun assignments using AI. So that's all internal facing. From the public side, we have created a bunch of content on the Infura blog and other blogs using AI just for editing, just for brainstorming, getting insights through HubSpot and other areas. For customer support and DAO onboarding, we thought about what type of bot could be used to deploy for Discord integration or GitBooks integration. I can talk more about that later. And in the exploration phase, how does it overlap with our particular products? So for example, your UI UX might change for FAQs because you might not go through an FAQ page. You might just ask a particular bot. Also, MetaMask Snaps directory came out. So the Snap store is out there, and we have ideas of how to implement AI into some of those MetaMask Snaps ideas. So hopefully looking forward to building some of this out and seeing how it impacts the product overall. So let's get started from a little bit from the beginning, from insights. So the first thing to think about, I've been in the AI space for quite some time. I did some work in autonomous vehicles in the early days back in 2008, 2009. Built a few really fun reinforcement learning algorithms for autonomous vehicles. And what's different here is it's not just supervised learning. So AI has been around for a long time. It's been in discussion and being built over time. And there are different layers of this. So usually what we think about are smaller data sets. And if you think about the input being email, for example, then the output is really looking at patterns to figure out whether or not it's spam. And so that leads to a spam filtering application, for example. Same for ads. If you click on an ad, if you have all this information and you look at search, they use AI for creating a model of learning what ads are most effective, and that leads to more online advertising. And so all of this is just labeling of things, right? It's special purpose, smaller data set. You're training your data set to recognize these things. I think the difference with prompt-based AI or generative AI is that it's a larger level of understanding of the semantic English and other language understanding. And so a large language model is still using generative AI, it's still using transformers to figure out what the next words are, but it is thinking about the next word in context and trying to predict that next word. And because humans tend to think in a very serialized way, it gets very, very clever because now you have this foundational model that understands the human language. And if you look at how it gets trained, so you don't just get this vector database with all of these different words and how it comes together, you also need to use some heuristic to optimize it. And so there was an article that came out about how OpenAI trained most of their large language model GPT-4 through manual labor of people saying whether or not this particular sentence made sense or if the answers made sense. And that's because it used this feedback loop. And this is very important for any type of AI learning. You have to get a heuristic that optimizes for what's next. Like, is this a good answer, right? If the yes or no answer is false data, then you also get a pretty bad output. So garbage in, garbage out still applies to this. And that heuristic optimization is pretty important. So that's just kind of base understanding of foundational models. I can go into this. There's a lot of different great courses. This is just my quick summary. I wanted to first start off with, is this all hype? Like AI won't be able to do this. There's a lot of misunderstanding of what could not happen. So the first thing, these are predictions back from, I believe, end of 2022, before ChatGPT came out, or right when ChatGPT came out. And I think that it's interesting how far this has come, especially with big companies like Google releasing products much faster than I thought they ever would. And so the first one being understanding a story, answering questions about it. We've seen LLM models pass pretty much every exam out there with flying colors, and they're trying to do that with fewer and fewer parameters. And we can talk more about that later. Another thing is human level automated translations of languages. Bard's Palms documentation is pretty good. I believe it connects to Google Translate, and I could probably show a demo of that as well if you've used Bard before and you wanted to see how it works. I'm going to use my personal account for Bard, and I did this demo the other, explain ELI 5, right? So let's say the chat is, what is Ethereum or something of that sort. They have already connected a bunch of really interesting features for this. So for those who don't know, Bard uses Palm 2. It will use Genesis in the future as its LLM, which is supposed to be much bigger and better than GPT-4. But they have this feature where you can listen to the answer. And so this is a text to audio of the
decentralized blockchain.
I don't know if you can hear that.
Runs smart contracts, applications that run exactly as programmed without any possibility of fraud or third-party interference. Ethereum is the
So it's just reading that, but what if you said, translate this answer to Spanish? Then it will take that answer, translate to Spanish, and Google Translate has multiple, language pronunciations as well. So you could listen to it, and it does audio to, text to audio for the Spanish language as well.
Here is the translation of your answer to Spanish.
¿Qué es Ethereum? Ethereum es una plataforma de blockchain descentralizada que ejecuta contratos inteligentes, aplicaciones que se ejecutan exactamente.
So if you really wanted to translate your material, you could pretty much just ask Bard to do it. And it does quite a good job. And it does it for free. And it's all, you can even read it out for free without any major accents. Another thing that I think is interesting here, interpreting what's going on in a photograph. If I wanted to upload a photograph to Bard, and I have a bunch of random photos that you can upload. So maybe, it doesn't do, let's just do this one. What is this photo? So you can upload your photos, and you can even use anything from, if you're an art history major and you wanted to upload a particular photo. So this one actually says it's a digital illustration of a brain. And you can even say, if I wanted to recreate this in a generative AI image creator, what prompt should I use? And so it doesn't just describe it, it can create a particular prompt for your Midjourney or Leonardo AI or Stable Diffusion. Oh, well, it worked before. Live demos never work, but you can ask multiple times in a. Aha, so maybe if you enter this information, it might help. Writing interesting stories. I found a great use case for ChatGPT and other LLMs is just to say, this is a children's story within 10 minutes. And so create something about, princesses and dragons. And it does a pretty good job. You can even use a ChatGPT plugin where it will recommend the story and create the visuals for it. There's a stories plugin for that. Interpreting works of art, as I mentioned, Bard is already connected to kind of the Google Arts and Culture, which has all of the different museums and all of their artworks in high definition. So it will pull from either that directly or do an interpretation of different artwork. In terms of human general intelligence, I don't know if we're going to get there, but there are definitely really interesting ways of seeing these bots play video games. So Minecraft, for example, we've seen some bots that started off quite dumb but continued to play the game just by input-output, by viewing the screen or viewing different inputs and being able to play the game directly. So instead of building these bots directly from the dev side, it's really testing out how they can optimize on making money in the game, for example. And the last one here, full self-driving, I mentioned this in a previous call, but I think it will be cheaper if you can imagine these LLMs as well as kind of general intelligence running businesses and optimizing on making money, that money won't be an issue for some of these businesses. And full self-driving is fairly complex. You have to deal with a lot of legal lawsuits as well as things go through. And I think it might just be cheaper to create some type of human bounty system. So one of the predictions is that white-collar jobs and software costs going to zero because anybody can write software and there's no more moats, that blue-collar jobs will actually get more expensive. And things that require skill with things like driving, which is quite hard to do, might be easier to just create these human bounties. And so the gig economy coming from Uber and Lyft and, Uber Eats and kind of Instacart, for those who are following the latest IPOs out there, I feel that is definitely going to be something that might just be a human thing to do, right? Instead of having it all automated. Maybe eventually we'll have, fully automated cars and, these robo taxis that are available. I made these slides back, this particular one back in May, and I've kind of evolved it a little bit, but it's still the same prediction that I've had, and I think it's interesting to see how it's come true. The first level of what's happening is kind of an increase of faceless YouTube videos for sure, for the creator economy, making that world much faster and easier to build. There's also something that I want to call work arbitrage, meaning that if you see things like, on Fiverr, or if you try to design a logo, there were different marketplaces in the past where you can build them. And now I feel that there's probably going to be a cheaper way of doing it and maybe lowering of costs for those types of white collar jobs. So if you're building out a design logo, for example, and you go through a few areas, they'll probably start marking different creations as either fully generative AI or augmented by AI in some way. And I think that that's important to note, is that, you know, use the tool, because it will be a tool that more people use. It's kind of like a tide that lifts all boats. And so if you don't use the tool, then you will likely fall behind. It's like typing things out manually and writing things out versus using a word processor in the early days. The next phase is more about enterprises. And I think that there's definitely a data privacy piece to this, but having the ability to onboard employees via leveraging some trained AI will be pretty important as well. One of the predictions is about mergers and acquisitions of companies. If you wanted to deploy an AI that learns all of your Google Drive material and is able to understand the history of, you know, depending on the size of your context window, it might be pretty big, but you would be able to query this historian of your company pretty easily and know more about how to, you know, onboard new players into this AI bot that's trained by your employee. So it could be an AI intern at first, but eventually could be an AI SME as well, or subject matter expert. What we found is VCs or venture capital is probably right now providing a lot of money. So 9 out of 10 or 19 out of 20 VCs are investing into AI specific companies. And that does lead to some deflationary pressure. So deflationary meaning that you will probably see smaller checks coming from VCs, because most of the money will go into infrastructure costs, and maybe you need a smaller team to do what needed to be done before. Maybe the demos that are out there are much more impressive with your beta when you're kind of fundraising. And that also means that there's fewer moats. So if somebody launches a new idea and somebody wanted to copy that idea, there used to be developers that just look at these open ideas, make a copycat of it, launch it, you know, and then try to make money off of those subscriptions. And now I feel that it's probably much easier to do that, much faster to do that as well. And the last one is AI clones. So I hope to have a Clembot. I probably do have a Clembot already. But the idea is having an individual or enterprise-based clone where there is an AI bot that is an expert. One of my older slides had a QR code on a tombstone saying that if you wanted to chat with me from the dead, then you can do so, because this Clembot knows everything from all of the material that I've written, and kind of all of the random thoughts that I've had for my private accounts could be, you know, exposed through this QR code chatting with me from the past. And so I think that's super interesting for the enterprise side as well, because you can have different AI clones and AIs that are launched directly as agents inside of your Slack or inside of your company, so that you can query it and continue to train it. And hopefully that comes with multiple people training in a single bot. So if you look at ChatGPT or Claude 2 today, it's usually a base stateless type of bot that is only within a single thread. So as you chat with the thread, it you know, grows in context and it continues to learn. But then when you switch to a new thread, it's stateless, so it doesn't know even your name from the previous conversations from the other thread. If you can have one that is all-knowing and continues to update, then you can have a thread that's trained by multiple employees that has questions that then can just be an AI agent or a character of some sort. So when I first gave this presentation, the main thing was to not scare people, saying that they would be replaced. I think the whole idea is these AI assistants and interns are going to help increase your efficiency, productivity, throughput. It's more of a, you know, somebody that's helping you rather than somebody that's completely replacing what you do. And I still believe that that's true. There's also a shift. And so for those who are here in the early internet days, there was WYSIWYG, or what you see is what you get. Right now, there's Squarespace or Wix or whatnot to build your website. And I think it has transformed into what you narrate is what you get. So kind of like a WYNIWYG, because prompt engineering just becomes, can I query and can I continue to query to get to a place where I can deploy my actual site or deploy my actual application. Another thing to think about is the time that we've spent on the internet is quite young, but I do feel that we are generating a lot of human-based content. And from here point forward, there will be probably this solidification of our human-generated content that has not been augmented by AI. And so if you look at the number of AI-created images, for example, it only took, a year, and we have as many images as photographers have taken in over 150 years. Feel free to, we're going to share these slides so you can look at all the source and all these different links that I share here. So, approximately 80% of the images were created using models. So 12.6 billion images already created. And I think that's really interesting, because then moving forward, do you even need to take photos, or people might guess whether or not you took that photo, or whether is a deep fake or some type of face swap of some sort. So it's hard to say what is actually a real photo versus an augmented one. And so the use cases are everywhere. And if you look at Product Hunt, I think that's probably the best place to find all of the different ideas that people are building out and launching to testers. And so at first there was Uber for X, meaning I'm going to leverage the gig economy, meaning that anybody can create some type of service that connects, these two parties together. And basically they are a transaction engine with some payment mechanism involved. So if you wanted to stay at home all the time, then you would use Uber Eats and Uber everywhere, right? ChatGPT for X, or kind of the LLM model for X. At first I thought it was a text to idea, or text to image, or text to speech, or text to video. Now, what I've continued to think through is it's probably less text to something and more training of these AI assistants and agents on the data and providing those smart interfaces for engaging with it. And so a ChatGPT for a particular subject is actually the learning model, the embeddings from the earlier conversation with Microsoft. Right? This is all, how do I train an AI agent to be special purpose? And then how do I launch that with the proper connections of APIs from different sources? I made a video of Joe talking about kindness speech that he gave within an internal town hall. And this is all possible today. So for those who haven't even looked at this space at all, this is generated from all kind of AI things. So let me just
Kindness means respecting your colleagues and making an effort to know your colleagues better. We're working on this as an org, and we'll soon share programs and systems that will enable us all to know ourselves and each other better. This will lead us all to understanding how to better structure our interactions in our teams. Kindness means putting effort into informing those around you of anything and everything you believe will help them make their best decisions. Kindness means you say something rather than fearing conflict. It will.
So feel free to watch this, but notice the facial expressions, the pausing in the voice. And so I did this all from a Zoom recording transcript, which was pulled from Zoom. And then I used 11 labs to train Joe's voice specifically on public videos. So there were 2 5-minute interviews that he did that's all public, and I trained it to create that voice. I used Midjourney for the actual image of some James Bond character. I used Insight Face Swap to swap Joe's face onto this. And then there's an app called DID where you upload the photo, and if you upload the audio with it, it will do the facial images plus the mouth movement and kind of the eye movement together, and you will have a fully, created video. And I probably did this within 2 hours, and the hardest part was getting files into the right format and kind of uploading them. But yeah, it probably would have taken a creative design firm much longer, and it is definitely not as long anymore. And if you
sorry, I can't post my questions in the Q&A, so I'll have to jump in. What was the cost of it? So did you have to pay many licensing fees or things like that, or was that just all on free software?
Yeah, that was all free. 11 labs gives you, I think you have to pay for 11 labs, which is $5 a month. Midjourney is around $5 a month as well. I actually have a breakdown of all of the tools that I pay money for, so that should break it down. But maybe total like $10 tops. I pay for Insight Face Swap
Wow.
because it's a fun, it's a fun party trick.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, so I didn't spend any money on the training or the tools themselves, right? It makes sense to support these groups, but DID, I just created a new account and used one of their free tokens and free trials for it. So if you break it down, in terms of manifestations, you have text to content to image to video. What people are creating as specific components that they're using directly is some type of fine-tuning or chat refinement, right? So if I'm learning from a particular set of data, or if I'm continuously asking deeper questions, I feel that for creation of content, WordPress has an AI engine plugin, not funded by any of these groups, but you can do a live edit. So directly in your WordPress as you're writing the blog, and I believe any type of syndicated blog platform like Medium or Substack probably has this as well, but they call it a wand, or even on Notion, right? You can just write based on description and it'll come up with kind of a first draft of things. In terms of end-to-end article and slide creation, there's tome.ai, which I've used before just to see what it would create in terms of 10 slides about Web3, and it just generates it for free. For SEO and description optimization, we've basically used this for figuring out what to write in terms of engaging titles or engaging descriptions that are better for SEO. For images, I mean, generative AI images are everywhere. I mean, I can share probably 10 different sites where you can use it for free. Stable Diffusion, you can run your own servers, get rid of any of the guidelines. In and out painting, so using AI in particular sections and learning from the existing pictures, you can upload existing pictures. I showed face swapping, for example, using these for thumbnails, just generating images for your blog posts, for example. And then for video, this is from Zoom as well, and also from Google. They had this Duet AI that also includes Google Meet upgrades, but basically they'll do live transcriptions, they'll do meeting summaries. If you join a particular meeting late, it'll give you a transcription and a summary of the talking points. You can even tell the AI to share your talking points, and then it'll summarize the entire meeting. We've seen a lot of great ideas that comes from the idea of taking either audio, transcribing it and summarizing it, or taking different widgets and putting them into existing systems. Definitely end-to-end faceless YouTube channels. There's so many of those out there already. And also taking longer form videos such as this one, and then using a platform like Vizard, for example, to break them down into smaller posts. You could probably pay a marketing agency a few $1,000s a month for them to do it, to watch all your videos, put them into YouTube Shorts or Reels and share them. Or you can kind of do it yourself and have this AI based tool to read through it, launch it with kind of all of these different formats and directly post to your YouTube channel. So really just taking fewer steps. This was before ChatGPT Enterprise came out. These are the common AI bot marketing talking points. The first thing being train ChatGPT on your own data, make sure that it's not hallucinating, that it only pulls from real data. So in the public, what that would look like is creating a customer support bot through Discord integration, doing a Docs chatbot through GitBooks integration, having a ChatGPT plugin of some sort with custom queries that can be answered. And the next section, I'll share different examples of these with Web3 companies. And then internally, I think it is connecting to private data sources. I would not recommend doing this because, if your GPT instance is then shared more publicly, people might be able to try to, do some funky stuff and try to jailbreak your chat, depending on what it has learned. Definitely leveling up of your team, creating a co-pilot for products, hopefully an agent that understands your products and iterating on it. Since this is a kind of a intro session, feel free to read through these different things. I'm sure earlier sessions I talked about kind of what vector databases look like and how they relate to each other. But there's 2 articles here that I think give a good overview of an LLM tech stack, and this one a architecture for LLMs from A16Z Enterprise. I also found that deeplearning.ai, Andrew Ng, who's one of like the masterminds behind, early versions of Google's deep learning models. He gives this set of really, really great 1-hour courses, probably 10 hours tops, but there's a link to this here. And again, we'll share the slides. Okay, so what are AI companies, or what are Web3 companies doing to create AI modules, and how are they augmenting their existing external facing websites? For retail-facing features, we've seen a lot of onboarding, chat with your docs. I think the education side, your AI tutor, is super interesting. If you've looked at Conmigo, which is part of Khan Academy, they are creating an AI tutor that works with your child to learn its particular abilities, but then also asks questions, and based on your answers, it kind of creates a fairly bespoke learning path. I think it's a really fascinating idea to think about a newer generation having an AI teaching assistant or tutor for their entire lifetime. And then that particular tutor, you can pay to learn more modules or learn a particular way, but it could be as impactful as just having a Chromebook, available from primary school onward. This is more of an AI tutor that would be on that Chromebook that helps with your child and knows its full, his or her full life cycle of learning, and may help adults as well. I would love a personal AI tutor to recommend things that I might be interested in learning, and then test me on those things as well. As you move forward, you have additional first drafts just for coding, as well as for writing, auditing and debugging of contracts. How do you implement this into your continuous integration, continuous delivery? Different APIs that might be exposed via GPT. So ChatGPT Plus has plugins, and you can build your own GPT plugin. There's definitely a thought about what GPT SEO looks like. So search engine optimization today uses advertising. It uses other mechanisms of, who is the person searching for it and how relevant is it for their profile, for their location. I think it will be interesting. Different LLMs and styles of these AI agents out there may look at the world differently, may use different search engines and their SEO for understanding what the top results are. So it would be great to do some backwards reverse engineering of how an AI learns these things and provides references to them. In terms of, so for example, if I wanted to recommend the best Web3 wallet, then I would say it's MetaMask, but there are a lot of other wallets out there, and I wonder if you can manipulate that by either blasting a lot of content out or creating particular content that can be specifically in your robots.txt, mined by GPT-5 when it comes out, right? So things like that are pretty interesting. For internal usage, what's relevant to Web3, I think, is DAO onboarding. I would love to see more material that's created such that a person that's first joining a DAO gets some type of DAO AI assistant and helps with, instead of just the Discord bots that we see today, something that's a little bit more engaging. And I think that would be really good for getting on the same mission and statement of your particular DAO. And definitely some type of new marketplace that might get created from all of this content. So what are some live examples that we've seen? These are trained chatbots that are available. Amy, which came out of crypto.com back in May. Binance Sensei came out of Binance back in, I believe, March or April. Kappa.ai is a generic, vendor that allows you to connect to and deploy different bots. And so I'll share that a little bit later, but this is for Avalanche, for Moonbeam, for Algorand. Solana and DeFi Llama wrote their own separate ChatGPT plugins. I like the explanation that Kappa.ai used. And again, they're not sponsoring or anything, but it shows the idea of connect your sources. So any public sources of vendors that you might be using already, deploy your chat bot, which just could be a website widget, could be a Discord bot, could be a Slack bot. And then the goal here is to measure the reduction of support units. So, any type of P3 or P2 or those SLAs could be covered by a bot rather than Zendesk or other services. And then the priority ones are sent to your customer support directly. These are just more detailed examples of what I just shared before. So AvaGPT or Avalanche's GPT doc, you can share with it and chat with it directly. DeFi Llama, the ChatGPT plugin, you can directly query and it'll give you kind of the latest, TVL, other information. You can ask it what you can ask it and it'll give you that information. Polygon launched a Copilot, which I can share a link to as well. And so the cool thing about this is it connects to a Polygon wallet. So you can connect your Polygon wallet and you'll get set number of credits. I believe it saves your history of questions that you give it, and you get new credits along with it. And it's just trained on public information. So I wrote this before, how do I begin my journey on Polygon? And it shares different links to Polygon resources. Some earlier views of this, there is within Morales docs a way that just has a little ChatGPT logo on here, and you can query it. I'm sure it's just trained on Gitbooks data or Docusaurus or whichever vendor that they use, readme.com. So these are all possible. Alchemy created their own Alchemy AI, which is twofold. One is just a chat Web3 different logo on the bottom right, where it can help you get started and help you with within the dashboard for additional pieces. The other thing is this Alchemy ChatGPT plugin that they have, and you can query it directly. So with all of these, it's kind of a free resource, right? You're using their services, but they're just experimenting with the surface area of how it gets used. Like, is anybody going to my main site and then directly asking the chat Web3 bot, or are they still asking for support? I think we'll see some interesting results from that. Two other things to think about. So I've launched my own bot trained on Material. I use BotPress, and BotPress has been around for quite some time, but they added a pretty interesting integration. So if you go to BotPress, you can create your own. And this is a simple one that I made, which is you have an intro. So I can say, hi, and it will do the intro that I've indicated here. This Clembot trained on Clemens's books, writings, and random musings with a random image of me, face swapped. And then you have this AI knowledge as well. So it says, ask me anything. What the AI knowledge enables is this connection to these different workspaces. So here I have Clemens's stuff as a knowledge base, and I trained it on my web pages as well as a document of the book that I wrote. And so if you look at this, it really just tries to answer the question. It'll return an error. It'll ask additional questions. And so you can keep on saying, what is Clemens's favorite list of 30? Maybe it doesn't know. Sorry, I don't know what you're talking about. If Clemens were to write a list of 30, what would it be about? Yes, I do have more questions. So it's not great, but you get the idea. I was able to deploy this within, minutes, right? So yeah, so this is probably learned from my book, 30 Things I Suck At, 30 Burn After Writing Prompts, from my website, different things that have been written. And you can deploy this directly. So I have my site. I've deployed a ChatGPT bot over here on the side. I'm an AI of perfect simplicity. Do you need a list of 30? And then on the chatbot side, and this is all just embedding, it's pretty simple. There's this bot in the back over here where, again, you can kind of say hi and I'll do the same thing. And this took literally no time at all to produce. Great. And there's something called AIAA or AAIA. It's a movement of basically, if you wanted to create a smart home, then you can purchase the things and kind of have somebody pay to set it up. Well, this is what people have been creating as an autonomous AI service where you create agents for other websites. And so very similar to work arbitrage of early days. Let me make a website for you with WordPress. You could make a AI bot for somebody through BotPress and launch a widget within half an hour and get paid money for it. So the same type of, early days of creating websites and having those services. Now people are using that for creating bots. Another tool that I think is good for solidifying the understanding of kind of embeddings and also creation of this material. I believe I created something here, is Stack-AI. And so here under Stack AI, you can create different templates, but I created one for a Q&A. And I really like the interface. I believe there's an open source version of this on Linux as well, where it's just a visual way to show, based on your input, you can train it on a set of, long document, and then you can have the system query it saying, you are a helpful document assistant. And then in your prompt, you can input in these variables, right? You input in these variables, what's the question, what's the answer, and then your output would be the answer that this particular LLM GPT-4 otherwise gives you the answer. So I think, again, these are really interesting tools and ways for understanding how these are trained. A few other important Web3 pieces, Dune LLM, they have already, I believe, launched this. If not, they're launching it shortly. They released a roadmap back in March, but effectively you can create all of these Dune Analytics dashboard views and queries, and effectively use the wand to create a natural language query, as well as debug your syntax resolution. So really clever way of making all of these SQL queries and dashboards much faster. Another one that I've seen is Masari AI. They basically AI generate summaries of existing posts, like this one from CoinDesk. They created a summary of it. And so again, Masari is trying to create a Bloomberg terminal or some way of surfacing all of their different research articles, but also getting context from other sources. So easy way of getting summaries from existing material. And we have within Consensys released a few different articles of how to use ChatGPT, for example. And this is a hover code AI. It is a way to create QR codes that work with images, and I can show a demo of that as well. Okay, so specific to this month, I think if you look at all of the AI news, and I consume a lot of AI news, you'll see the highlighted ones are closed versus open source LLMs. So how do I create a LLM that is likely going to be trained on fewer parameters, meaning it's smaller, meaning it's probably more effective in some ways for specific industries. And then how do I use AI to train AI itself? I think that's super interesting. Basically asking known bots like GPT-4 to give an answer to a question and then ask it to explain in detail how it came to that answer so it understands the logic. And that is much better than understanding all of the other subjects that may have led it to that conclusion. Regulation is a big one. Different testing frameworks on different LLMs and how to normalize those. There is definitely a media impact. So the SAG actor strike, all of these things are happening right now, and there's a lot of content being created, and we want to make sure that people are paid properly with royalties, with training, with intellectual property. That tends to come up quite a bit. One negative thing, there's a bunch of things to worry about, but misinformation, phishing, as well as even typing security is going to be a problem. There was a research paper that came out around using Zoom audio to listen to people's keystrokes and being able to figure out people's passwords with 95% accuracy, which is super scary. On the gaming side, NVIDIA created, AI NPCs, so non-playable characters. There's also FlexiCubes, which is basically text to image to 3D directly. So maybe there could be an Earth 2.0 that's just based off of all the photos that we've created. into the metaverse or into a particular game. Many companies are updating their terms and services. I believe Twitter/X has just done this to say that they're able to look through your tweets and be able to use that for training their AI, for example. In the future, X, that is a combination of things, payments and crypto and social media and all of the things that Elon Musk wants. ChatGPT Enterprise, as well as Azure GPT instances, have come out. I'm sure other LLMs and businesses are thinking about how they can create their own private enterprise versions. Big companies are rolling out big products very, very quickly, and I can give demos of that. And also existing IT vendors that you might have upgrades. So this next section is really just describing that. If you look at the big players, here's a summary of what they're doing and what they've launched and potential of what they've launched. So Google has Bard, which is on Palm 2 and will lead to Gemini, Gemini. And then Search Labs, SGE, Search Generative Engine is already live. So if you have a regular account, there's Search Labs over here, and you can turn on Search Generative Engine or Generative AI in Search. And if you do that, you can see on the bottom, there is a set of requests. Is cereal soup? And on the top left over here, you have this converse button. So all of these are summaries and links to different articles, but also you can converse with a particular query. And so this is supposed to be, cereal eaten from box is not soup, but cereal eaten with milk from a bowl is soup. It's pretty cool. What other fun questions are there? I don't know. Well, this is a new feature of conversing. Fun questions you can ask people, sure. And I believe they have an API for summaries as well. So you can start to use their APIs for generating summaries. I think what's powerful is Duet AI that came out recently. It will be trained on the workspace, so your Gmail, your Docs, your Sheets, your G Drive, all the material that I definitely have can be something that is trainable, meaning if I'm writing a new, Google Drive document or slide, I can reference it to a different slide and say, can you summarize an earlier set of presentations and then create this new slide with this template? And I'll do that pretty quickly. The power here is superpowering all of your emails, messages, if you want to, things that you have written, and it can likely write in your voice, and it can likely write suggestions as well. We heard from Microsoft earlier today. They will integrate into their Office suite. They have GitHub Copilot. They have Azure GPT, ChatGPT Enterprise as a part of it. Probably a open source version of models, for enterprise, so Claude 2, other types of models. And then I think that they are focused on kind of older enterprise upsells. So they still have probably a lot of upsell on Office. And so Office features will probably be pretty impactful. And I think the enterprise side, anything with Bing catching up, I'm sure they'll have an upside with that. On the AWS side, AWS Bedrock has connections to open source projects. So Anthropic Claude 2, for example, I'm sure there's a lot of other open source, kind of like open source databases that are available. All of that will be open source LLM models that are available. And a lot of startups use AWS. So I'm sure people are leveraging that for their own training models. I would be interested in an Alexa integration. I haven't heard anything from it, but if you think about this interaction with LLMs, it is really a better version of Siri and Google Assistant, right? I'm not just querying once to get a single answer where you're summarizing and converting it into some action, maybe, creating a new calendar invite on your phone or something like that, but it's much more detailed. You may want to have a longer conversation and a conversation that has context with your previous questions. So maybe rollouts for modules of existing things. On the Apple side, haven't heard too much about it. I didn't hear the update today, but iOS integration of some sort makes sense. Some type of Siri integration also makes sense. Something connected to Time Capsule would also be cool. For any Apple user, the power is the full stack. and I think that there could be a voice activation as well. On the Meta side, Llama 2 is open source. There's Tiny Llama with 1.1 billion parameters. There's Llama Code. And I like the Hugging Face is probably going to be Skynet or something similar, right? Skynet will likely be open source, is kind of my view. So I think AI-enabled phones and private LLMs will probably be next. So taking all the ideas of having closed source LLMs, having additions to your operating system, to having lower hardware requirements and fewer parameters, I feel that it's probably a matter of time where you get the movie Her phone, as well as an upgrade to your AirPods as well. So having a voice-activated operating system seems to be the next phase of where we're going. I mentioned SGE already, and I'll have a lot more face swaps here. There's also Duet AI for Google Workspace. There's ChatGPT for Business, which was leaked, and now there's a ChatGPT Enterprise, which is available. And Claude 2 Pro just released, which is similar to ChatGPT Plus. There's a lot of slides here. Hugging Face, so Falcon 180 billion is basically a new open source model. And it is the most powerful open source model, but if you compare it with the other parameters that you have, so OpenAI's GPT-3 was probably 175 billion parameters, but GPT-4 has 1.76 trillion parameters. And so far, I think still GPT-4 is winning on its training size. And the way to think about this is that your parameters is basically the tokens that you feed into the context. And so the larger parameters leads to more data processing, which means that it should be smarter, but it also means that you're computationally and memory dependent on those resources. Just a few other things to think about. DoorDash and Uber Eats released their strategies for using AI. So Uber Eats is using an AI chatbot to speed up your ordering and recommendations. So if your food on-demand platform has a matching marketplace, then the retail ordering to the restaurant is basically going to be augmented on the chat side. But if you're DoorDash, what they released was something called it's a voice augmentation of an AI bot that can take orders over the phone. So if you are ordering from an AI bot, then it will use that to create the order directly. And so it's trying to stay away from the platform specific, but just help people, answer phone calls from and directly create tickets off of it. A few other things, Figma came out with their Jambot. So you can chat with a Jambot. So for those who use Figma Jam, you can create these workplaces, ideate off of them, and directly, create a bunch of really interesting things, rewrite, summarize, rabbit hole, give me this, code this up, and it'll create different visual ways of viewing your ChatGPT responses. AI for Slack. So Slack just came out with they announced this a few days ago last week on a pilot for channel recaps, for thread summaries, for searching for answers, for doing this workflow builder, which apparently just came out with their new hub, so that you can connect recipes similar to IFTTT or if this then that. There's also Slack lists that it came out with, which is kind of like a Trello or a Jira board for Kanban. And yeah, I think advancements on the Slack AI side would be more interesting if it's more of this AI agent deployment. Zoom AI also came out. So it was called Zoom IQ, and now they call it Zoom AI. So a Zoom AI companion, and it comes out with composed messages from team chats, which nobody really uses because they use Slack. Recaps of the meeting so far, I think, is interesting. There's also a generation of whiteboards off of conversations, writing email summaries and launching them as well. And I understand I'm 5 minutes in, 5 minutes left. The other thing is WordPress has an AI engine, which is completely free. So you can, I didn't realize this, but WordPress as a content management system is used by 40% of all websites out there, which is around 60 million websites. I don't know if that's true, but I asked ChatGPT and Perplexity to give me some information. So you can use AI Copilot, corrective editing, image generation, chat bot builder directly and connect your API plugins. So with the 5 minutes, I think what I can do is just share just high level, and I'll share these slides as well. But in terms of AI co-piloting either parts of a company or a DAO, DAOs are companies with kind of fewer resources, right? This is kind of community-based. And there are different names for it, but maybe less about the internal system and the platform itself, but you are trying to build something together and build towards that goal. And so there are things that you can do. There's examples of these as one-pagers later in the presentation. You can try out queries with AI Advantage. They came out with a pretty interesting set. This is fully open for people to read, but there's a prompt library where you can directly copy and paste prompts and get better responses, write anything using a particular writing style. How do we prompt it properly? And so I think I'll end on this slide, or maybe one more slide after this. Which LLM chat service do I use? So I use all of these. The main one for general image analysis and internet tasks is Bard. For anything related to writing, I still use ChatGPT. I love the advanced data analysis plugin, which I could show a demo of. For longer context, I use Claude 2. They can take a full book and summarize it. So if you wanted to take the latest Elon Musk book and summarize it, you could do that through Claude 2. And academic tasks and internet access, I like Perplexity or Bing, which is effectively, ChatGPT, GPT-4. Perplexity, for those who don't know, is really good. It's just another way of searching and gives kind of links to everything. So I'm going to end here on this slide, which is which apps do I pay for? And so ChatGPT Plus, I like it because I still use ChatGPT quite a bit. So that's about $20 a month. You can also use Claude 2 or Bard for free alternatives. For OpenAI API, I connect this for BotPress and other types of services. It's usually under $2 based on what I use. Llama 2, you can also deploy locally and have that work. 11 Labs, which is what I used for the voice cloning. I have my own voice cloned as well. That's $5 a month. The Midjourney is what I use for most of my image generation, but there's probably 10 or so alternative ones. Ideogram is another one that just came out, which is like Instagram, but just for queries. And Leonardo.ai is really good for portraits. Stable Diffusion XL has been really interesting for the latest updates. Insight Face Swap is how I do all my face swaps. Topaz Gigapixel AI is how I upsample my my photos with AI to unblur them. I think that's a great feature. It's a one-time cost. I believe Google Photos also has that already built in. Vizard is something to repurpose your videos with that AI magic. So I'm trialing it and found it pretty useful, but it's pretty good arbitrage with media companies that do that. Wirestock is another one, but that's just for pushing, photos to multiple stock sites. Great. I think I'm up on time, but as you can see, there's a lot you can demo. You can write in your own voice by prompting and describing your style and then asking it to write in that particular style. There's Code Interpreter with Kaggle. You can connect different things to this analysis. You can have direct web access with your ChatGPT with different browser plugins. And I think I'll put this into the next month's session. But are there any questions that I can answer? Sorry if I'm going over by a few minutes. I'll end with my face swapping. You can see the first image and then the face swapped image.
I'm going to apologize. We've just been notified that for some reason the chat is disabled. I've been trying in the background to remove that, but somehow we can't. So if you want to say something, raise your hand and we can unmute you. And otherwise, if you have a question, pop it into the Q&A. But yes, sorry for not having the vibe of community and chit chat. Christopher, to answer your question, yes, you will get the presentation. We will upload it together with the video to our YouTube, and it'll be sent out as a follow-up to all of the participants. So no worries about that. Clemens, it was, as usual, an incredible presentation. I don't know how you do them. It's just mind-blowing. Yeah, are there any final questions, or shall we just... Oh, I didn't notice that my camera was off. Or shall we just revisit the topic next month? I'm sure we can do a little bit more demos and some other updates from the future. Also, these images are brilliant.
Yeah, I think this was a good kickoff
Okay.
point, but each month I can just do the without any of the longer intro that took probably like 25 minutes or so. I'll just do demos of new products and then yeah, focus on that in the future.
Amazing. So much to come. I'm loving it. Loads of love from the community. Kevin, Christopher, Patricia are all sending their kudos. So thank you so much for doing this talk. We have one more talk today with Fetch AI on autonomous autonomous agents, not robots, autonomous agents. So hope to see you there in about an hour. Thank you
Great.
so
Thanks
much,
for setting
everyone.
this up.
Bye.